This is Ken Hill, and you're listening to the Sleepless Dream, Episode 2. I believe that living life is an art form, and the greatest masterpiece you'll ever make is how you choose to live it. So in this podcast, we take perspective, and we take creativity, and we turn it into a tool to bring you more into your daily life. It's almost Christmas. This is releasing on Christmas Eve, and I thought today we'd talk today about gifts and giving. Not only how to give to others, but how do you give to yourself? How do you give to your memories? How do you give to your thoughts? How do you give to your fears in a way that helps? That's what we're talking about today. Let's dive in. The house you live in right now, or the apartment, or wherever you're at, was probably super exciting the first day that you moved in. Look around your place. Do you wake up every day and say, God, I'm so happy I have these things? I know there's a point where it was said at one time for just about everything in that room. At least you felt good about it at one point. Maybe not excited for the toilet paper. Sure glad that it wasn't, it's there though when you need it, right? So we have this adaptation, right? And it's kind of a beautiful thing that we can adapt, because otherwise we couldn't get anywhere. If I woke up and I was blown away by everything all the time because I wasn't able to adapt to the things, to my environment, then I wouldn't be able to live a regular life. I'd be blown away by driving. I'd be blown away just by a cooking pan. Like, think of a baby. Like my son, he used to open and close the door and just giggle and laugh his heart out. It was amazing. I loved it. I was like, oh, to be that simple. But at the same time, if I'm opening and closing doors and laughing and giggling, I'll never be able to do anything else. That's not a bad life. That's not a bad life. But at the same time, we wouldn't be able to function if we didn't adapt. So expectation, I think, comes into play automatically as we adapt to things. And it's probably one of the easiest ways to kill a vibe, to kill a present, to kill a gift, is to have expectations. So like expectations is something to keep in check. I believe it comes because we adapt to things. And as we adapt, we get used to it, and then we start to depend on it. For instance, if your apartment burned down tomorrow, can you imagine the grief you would feel? But if you never had that apartment to begin with, and you heard of some apartment that burned down, do you see the difference in feeling, right? Because you never adapted to it. It was never yours to begin with. There's a different kind of connection that you have to it. Have you ever given something to someone and they were so disappointed or upset because they wanted something else? Kids are notorious for this at times because they get so excited in their heads. And also, do you notice that the more excited that people get about things, right? The more hype, the more they build it up. Oftentimes expectations are just natural to follow. We're not going to get into expectations today too much, but it's a dynamic that I want you to see, because as we give to others and as we give to ourselves and as we receive, expectation plays a huge role in how smooth and how happy we can be with these things. So what happens when we give and we expect something in return? What happens if you give a gift to someone and you expect something of equal value, or you see it as a favor or something that you did for that person, and you bring it up later on in life? Say, hey, I got you this cool thing, or I did this thing for you. My question for you is it really given? Did you really give anything if you bring it up again, if you use it as collateral later, or did you just barter it? Is this just a trade? Is this an exchange? This is what expectation does. I think gifts should be given freely and with the intention of making the other person's life better or happier, even just for a second or maybe forever. It depends on the gift. And it's only expectations that get in the way of this. It's also how we perceive receiving too as well. So I want you to really think about this dynamic between giving, receiving, and expectations. If you can remove your expectations, your giving and receiving will be fantastic. If you can receive without expectations, you won't be disappointed in what you got. If you can give with no expectations, you won't be counting or measuring how it returns to you. And why should it return to you? Now, why do we want something returned to us? There's different kinds of gifts that we can give. But I think there's some where we almost demand a certain form of reciprocation. And I think that this is another way to look at this. Now, this may be less physical gifts. And it can be physical too, but it can also be emotional. Like if we showed support to someone, or we showed love to someone, or we showed some vulnerability, and then there's this expectation like, well, they should reciprocate. Look at that and ask yourself what exactly that is, because I find a lot of times with those feelings, it's because we give the things that we don't give to ourselves. Now, think about this for a second. For instance, if I crave connection, right? And I find someone that could fulfill that craving, I would freely give that connection because I know what it feels like to not have connection. And then what happens? That can be beautiful. That in itself is beautiful. That is a form of giving. If you can just give connection without the need to reciprocate it, that's wonderful. But then something clicks, and that is that we still have this thing saying, but I still haven't filled this up in myself. Now, I know that we all have needs and wants, so I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that we shouldn't have those things. Have them, enjoy them. I'm just saying if it gets in the way, if you find that it becomes a barrier in your life, it might be worth looking into. Maybe there's another way that you could do it. Even if a little bit, it can make all the difference. If we can freely give a connection, a moment, without needing to reciprocate it, then it's truly free. And this is what I also mean, because if pressure is created later, it makes it harder for that person to want to reciprocate it. Not only harder, it makes it inauthentic, because what if they aren't like that? And if you're creating this force to make them do that, maybe they will, but how true, how honest is it actually going to be, and how long is that going to last? At the other token, if there's no pressure, then it creates an environment. Remember how the last episode, I was talking about creating the environment for the baby to walk. You're cheering them on. You're making them feel good. And if they fall, that's okay. And even if they don't, this is a little bit different, because even if they don't want to walk anymore, so let's say you give and you create this really cool environment, say they don't want to be in that environment anymore, that's okay too. Just be happy that you helped create that environment. This is a nice sense of giving. Okay, so I make this podcast. Say my first podcast, by the way, my first Spotify numbers, I had 6 plays on the first day. And that's something to celebrate. That's 6 people that have never heard me before, and they've listened. Now, on my YouTube channel, I have over 8 million views, over 1,000 videos. And all that takes time. And I can't compare the two. This is a brand new thing. So if I start to get hard on myself, if I start holding a standard, this is when it's good to give to yourself. Giving to yourself is basically saying, how can you be your own best friend? Because sometimes your thoughts in your mind are not always nice. What would you tell your best friend? And the question is would you say something different to your best friend than you would to yourself? I find a lot of times that, and this is even in martial arts, it's been shown that most of the time we feel more strongly defending someone else than we do ourselves. So if I were to protect a loved one, I would protect much more strongly than if I were to protect my own life. And the goal, I think, is to treat ourselves like we would our best friends. And to a great degree, that's how we give to ourselves. Giving to yourself reminds your brain to share with you, because it can get caught up in the rat race. We talked about adaptation, and just like how you can get used to the things around you, your apartment, you can also get used to the way that you not only perceive yourself, but perceive your standings with where things are. And I think this is part of the problem that I've been having with podcasting, is the fact that as a circus artist, when I spin my staff or my nunchucks, it's at such a high skill level. I know what that presence feels like. I know what this presence is going to feel like as a podcaster once I reach a certain degree, and it's going to be amazing. But the thing is because I know how that feels, I'm applying it too hard, too strong, and it's actually getting in my way. And me being my own best friend says, chill, man. Take it one step at a time. You are down here with that. That's okay. You got to love the process. That's 6 people. That's 6 more people that has not heard you talk before, or even if they have, not like this. That's how we give to ourselves. What about our memories, though? I think this is an important one, too. What does it even mean to give to your memories? If you think about it, your memories are a very powerful tool. If you had no memories of anything, what would you do with your life? How would you function? You couldn't function. That's just it. So when we give to our memories, we're kind of reshaping the way that we perceive things, our experiences that don't serve us. You ever just like smelled apple pie or smelled some sort of food and it reminded you of maybe when you were young? Even Christmas, maybe it gives you feelings of being a kid. Those are all valid memories. You hear a song and it reminds you of, I don't know, your first kiss, or the list goes on and on. The things that you value and the things that hurt you are usually the things that get engraved into memories. The things that hurt when we lose someone, when someone passes away, and especially during holidays, the disparity between how happy and how close people are in the holidays and the loss of this person that used to also be a part of that happiness can create a lot of sadness. How do you give to that memory? Or why would you even want to? I think we've all lost people. I think we've all suffered some kind of loss to some degree, even if we haven't. There's always been some kind of loss, right? And we know that life's about perspective, but it's also about being real with our feelings. So, say we're going through Christmas and we're feeling a little bit sad because we miss someone. I think it's good. We give to this memory not by repressing it, not by saying we should get over it, but how do we honor it? How do we build a shrine so we can feel the presence of the memory, the goodness? Because what hurts about it is the goodness of it. Like sadness, in my eyes, is just compassion with expectation. So if you're sad about something, it's because you cared about something. And when I say expectation, I just mean, that we had this need or this feeling that can no longer be met. And that degree of how much it filled that need or that feeling is the degree of pain that we feel, which is why losing people or breakups or, there's all kinds of things. It all depends on how attached we are to a particular person or situation or thing or value. And it's really easy to lament or to feel that pain and forget that the pain at its core is compassion, is care, is a form of excitement or love. It's going to be one or the other. Sometimes it's excitement. Sometimes it was my business was going well and then it took a deep dive and all that excitement's gone and all my dreams that were in it have hurt. And the question is, when we give to our memories, the question is, how do we turn it into a shrine? How do we take that feeling that hurts and how do we celebrate it again? How do we reconnect with the essence of what made it a good thing? It's not about denying that feeling. It's about decorating it. Because again, like I said, The only reason why it hurts is because it has meaning. And it's that meaning that we can celebrate. Even if it's no longer there anymore, because let's face it, nothing's permanent. In 100 years from now, how many people are going to know you? You know? How many, do you remember your great-great-grandparents? Do you remember the kind of people they were? This is the shift of life, is that it constantly and never stops moving. It's very dynamic, a bit chaotic. And that is also something to honor, but that's something different. Anyways, that got a little bit sad, a little bit dark, but I think it's good to look at this, because when you think about memories that are difficult, instead of letting it hurt you, which there's a degree of pain, and that degree of pain is how much we want that thing to come back, right? Usually, how much we wanted it to be different. But if we go in deeper into that feeling, we'll see that all it was excitement, compassion, care, love. It's all kinds of great positive things that we can still honor. And when you can build a shrine around it, maybe for Christmas, you take a moment just to reflect and to feel the goodness, and to remind yourself that the fact that you can feel it means it's still there, means it has meaning, means it's doing something. If it's a person, it's them moving through you, it's their influence, and the fact that your influence means it made a difference. Think about that. Do you notice there's kind of a theme, which is if we're able to give without wanting things back in return, then we can find this incredible beauty, this incredible vastness that we just, and it's the realization that we can't control stuff as much as we think, it's a lot of this is outside of our control. The only thing we can control is how we can influence things. Whether it's a memory that can no longer be there, if we can give to the memory, we can enhance it and use it to impact our lives and the lives of others too. Or if it's a gift that we give someone, or if it's a connection, or if it's a feeling, if we're able just to freely give it and try to minimize as much as possible what we want back from it. Now, I have talked a lot about perspective in the last 2 podcasts, but we haven't gone into creativity yet. So this podcast is about creativity and perspective and turning it into a tool. Where exactly does creativity come into play, and why should we focus on that, especially in terms of giving? The thing about creativity is there's 2 really big points to realize. The first is that creativity utilizes the knowledge that we already have. It's a form of intuition, of taking knowledge and applying it in situations that expand beyond what we know. So it's like, this much stuff, right? Because come on, in this world, how much do you know about the world? How much full knowledge can any one person absorb with computer programming and race car driving and being a cook? And there's a gazillion different types of things we could learn, and we could learn forever, right? So we have this limited field of knowledge, and creativity is the explorer that breaches right on the outside of that. And if creativity works, then we have this new understanding, this intuition from that exploration. And in my eyes, that intuition is more potent, is more powerful than if someone taught it to us. So for me, the creative aspect is also this shaping, the sharpening of this intuitive process that allows us to go through the world and experiment and explore things that put us at the edge of our limits, that allow us to go a step further than where we could go. So creativity allows us to explore the edges. It always gives us tools. So you're on a desert island. You're on a desert island. You got a shovel, you have a fully charged iPhone, and you have a hand grenade. What are you going to do? Well, you can use your knowledge. So think back to when you're in high school and they taught you, okay, if you're stuck on a desert island with a hand grenade and a shovel and an iPhone, here's what you do. And if you have knowledge of that, or if you have some semblance of knowledge of survival skills, you can apply some of that. But if you don't use your creativity at all, it's going to be a very small amount of knowledge that you probably have about this. Creativity will allow you to explore and combine ideas to see, okay, this is what I know about survival. This is what I know about phones. This is what I know about shovels and digging, And what it allows you to do is it allows you to you can start creating this huge map of options. And then you can use critical thinking to figure out what has the most chances of success. Creativity without critical thinking, without knowledge, like these three go hand in hand, because like with creativity, you can be like, oh, well, I'm just going to eat plants, but then you might just eat a poisonous plant, So you want to be careful, like especially if you're on a desert island and your life is on the line, you want to make good choices. But at the same time, if you don't experiment at all and you don't derivate, likely these items are not going to do you a whole lot of good for a very long time. Your creativity might allow you to survive or to get through it. And our culture, like everything has been made up. That's the other point. Everything has been made up. So the fact that a shovel even existed was because someone made it up. Someone discovered it and made it up. All the foods that we eat, someone discovered it and made it up. All the martial arts that you've seen, some guys were watching monkeys and they made monkey kung fu because they're observing a monkey and they tried to figure out how they could do it themselves. There's that intuitive connection between watching and doing. It wasn't in a textbook. Well, until that person did it, and then what happens? It becomes a textbook, And again, I think that intuitive process is an important thing. We'll talk about that later, but when I learn something, I do think it's important to try to understand what they understood instead of don't try to do what they do as much as try to understand what they understood. Like the drive behind a performer, instead of trying to copy their moves, try to find what drives them and see if you can find your drive. That is what's going to take you places. But we're going to go back, but that's the intuitive connection that creativity creates is huge. But that's something else. So everything was made up. Birthday cake, somewhere down the line, someone learned how to build a cake, but that cake was made because of ingredients that people made before them. And it just daisy chains all the way back through humanity to the point where we could just barely build a fire and someone invented the wheel. and somewhere down the line, it just keeps daisy chaining. And now there's cars and there's electricity and we have computers and I have this really awesome mic and it goes on and on and on. And video games 30 years ago compared to now, riding on the shoulders of giants. It started off with this technology and people got creative. People thought. And all creativity is exploring the boundaries and coming up, putting thoughts and ideas together that make sense or that don't. And you either get the lesson or you get the reward. So creativity means that no matter what situation you are in, you have options. That's really what it means, because you can't learn everything. So no matter what it is, you can take all the knowledge that you have and you can apply it to your very specific situation. And that's why I love creativity, because that is how we evolve. And if you don't have any kind of evolution happening, I also think we end up becoming mechanical. There's this mechanical way to live. And I'm sure you've seen it, or at least you felt it. Maybe you found a groove in your life. I have, definitely. Even as an artist, sometimes I find this groove in my life where I realize I don't have to think anymore. I've learned everything there is to learn to do where I'm at in my life, and I can just hit that autoplay button and I will move and I will respond and I will react and I will be the human being that I need to be. And what happens there is not only is there no growth, but that stagnation can sometimes cause us to hold ourselves back and to hold the quality of our lives back. Oh, it's my cat. Say hi, Luna. It's my favorite cat. Anyways, cat attack. It can hold ourselves back. We can hold ourselves back by not having this exploration attitude. And what I mean to say is there's this other side too, where if we stop exploring, it can turn into a fear. We could get so comfortable that the safety from not exploring becomes our comfort zone. Because when you explore, you make mistakes and you look foolish. And this is why I say be sloppy all the time, because once you start feeling uncomfortable, feeling sloppy, that's when you stop taking chances. That's when you stop growing. That's when you stop learning. And if you look in the history of man, we have been evolving. We've been growing because of these explorations, because we take chances. Just make smart ones, you know? First and foremost, try to treat all creative pursuits as a hypothesis. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. If you have expectations for how things should turn out, then you lose the play element of it. You're at the playground. You want to try this out. You want to see where it goes. And as you develop it, it becomes an intuitive skill. So try not to hold expectations too high when you're playing, when you're being creative. And it's okay. This is how we do it. At the same time, your ability to take very custom scenarios or very custom situations and apply exactly what it needs is going to be based on how well you can apply just the right amount of what you know. So we've already talked about giving without expectation and how we can give to ourselves even. Well, what happens when we add that element of creativity? First, I think we find more innovative solutions in how we give. When I say solutions, I just mean you're able to take very complex factors and you're able to use it like a puzzle piece and fit it just right. Creativity allows us to build around the pieces that we already have. If there's no creativity, it's a bit more like a brick. It usually works. Bricks can work. Bricks can definitely work. But if you want to capture the nuances, all the curves of a puzzle and get it just right, sometimes that takes a little bit of a creative approach, a little bit of innovation, a little bit of taking into consideration all of the elements that you can see and seeing where the connection points are. I think another thing is creativity in itself creates a little bit more positivity. Now, I think giving definitely creates positivity as well. But if you're creative about it, it inspires more of play. Even if the gift that you give to yourself or the gift that you give to others, even if it doesn't work, the fact that it was created from a sense of play will still come from a space that I think will be appreciated. Even to yourself. If you're coming from a space of play, and you're coming from, this is a hypothesis that I'm going to try out, and you're looking at a solution, it's a different approach. It's a slightly different approach. It takes on more of a play form. It allows problems to be treated more like a game. Now it's homework time. Your goal by next week is to find a use for how you can give freely to something and how you can use your creativity, combine them together and enhance something around you, whether it's a connection with the person, whether it's a connection with yourself, whether it's a viewpoint that you have that's limiting you, whether it's something at your job, whether it's your kids. It could be a lot of things, whether it's about something that you wanted. Take creativity and take giving and see how you can freely give to that to either increase the situation around you or to at least be happy with how things are. I would love to hear it. Message me, thesleeplessdream@gmail.com, or also you can post it in Spotify. That will be my big question on the Spotify question. And with that said, again, thank you all so much for listening. Like and subscribe if you can. I don't know if you can hit that little bell to be reminded of future podcasts. Again, I'm brand new to this. I love doing it though. I can tell that this is going to be a fun addiction. So thank you for joining at the very ground zero beginning of all of this. And I hope to hear from you. You let me know. Also write a message for what you'd like to hear more of. And with that said, you all have a Merry Christmas. Hope it's full of giving and creativity and warmth and happiness and all the good things that life has to offer.